A new Angus Reid opinion poll on pipelines is out, and it does not bode well for Justin Trudeau or Rachel Notley for that matter. The latest Angus Reid opinion poll dropped this morning. It's an opinion poll that queried Canadians from coast to coast, in every region, in every province, about pipelines. In almost every single question asked by the pollster, the province of Quebec was ultimately the outlier, going against the grain, against the consensus of the rest of the country. But it wasn't as much of an outlier as you think they might be. Let's dig into the poll a little bit today. And really, I'm not going to talk too much about things that are really unsurprising. Look, we know that Alberta and Saskatchewan's support for pipelines is always going to be high, and our sentiments towards the federal government's inaction on pipelines, that's going to be pretty strong. No shockers there. Manitoba and Ontario, they're also pretty moderately supportive of pipelines, so that's not something that really busts any narratives. I'm going to talk today about the things that might surprise you if you consumed all of your facts and news from the mainstream media. First question. Do you think the lack of new oil pipeline capacity is a crisis or not? Now, nearly 60% of Canadians think that the lack of pipeline access is at crisis level. So not just that it's problematic, it is a literal crisis. And here's where things get interesting for me. Alberta with 87% and Saskatchewan with 74% saying it's a crisis. Manitoba at 61% and Ontario at 61%. Those numbers aren't really all that surprising, right? Those numbers do seem about right. But even hippy-dippy British Columbia says that 53% of the people there think that the lack of pipeline access is a crisis. And Atlantic Canada is right in line with Manitoba and Ontario at 61%, saying the lack of pipelines is a crisis. That surprised me, and I'm glad to see it. The one outlier where more people say it's not a crisis than it is a crisis is Quebec. But it's not as much of a difference as you would expect. Still, 40% of Quebecers say the lack of pipelines is a crisis. That's pretty high considering all the rhetoric we hear from Quebec politicians, isn't it? Here's another surprising statistic about Quebec. Nearly half, 48%, say oil and gas is a critical industry to Canada. That's great to hear. 41% of Quebecers say that if there were no new oil pipelines, it would have a major, considerable effect on Quebec's economy. Also good to hear. Here's another interesting number. 46% of people who live in British Columbia think Justin Trudeau has been doing too little to build a new pipeline. And this next one, wow, I really like this coming out of British Columbia. Let's read the question preamble first. The question of local opposition is one always close to conversations about these issues. That has recently been highlighted by recent events in Houston, British Columbia, where 14 people were arrested from a blockade designed to prevent access to a different pipeline project operated by Coastal GasLink. The pipeline is to carry natural gas through Wet'suwet'en First Nation territory on its route from Dawson Creek to Kitimat. As far as you're concerned, should this kind of local opposition carry no weight, or a little weight, or a lot of weight, and all the weight? British Columbia, where these anti-pipeline protests are happening, absolutely shocked me. 57% of British Columbia respondents said that local opposition to nation-building projects like pipelines should carry no weight or little weight at all. I am pleasantly caught off guard by those numbers. And you'd never know that to be true if you followed the mainstream media coverage of the arrests of those 14 people in northern British Columbia. Even 25% of self-identified Liberal voters nationally say Trudeau is doing too little to push through pipelines. This last number is bad for Rachel Notley. When the pollsters asked people in BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba if over the last couple of years they thought the policies of the federal government had helped their province, only 9% thought so. So Justin Trudeau's flagship ideas of social license and carbon taxes have been wholeheartedly rejected by the people in Western Canada as total failures. Rachel Notley just spent the last 3 years sucking up to Justin Trudeau, pushing through the exact same policies. I cannot wait for Election Day when people can really show Rachel Notley how that all worked out for her. For the Rebel.media, I'm Sheila Gunn Reid. What you just saw there is the daily video that I do here at The Rebel, but did you know that I have my own weekly full-length show where we cut through the mainstream media narrative to talk directly to the people who are making the news? But to get access to my show and the rest of our incredible premium content, treat yourself to a Rebel subscription today.